And the more power people have, the greater the range of horrifying possibilities.
He killed somebody twice because he didn't bring all of the drugs. And then the guy woke up halfway through the procedure screaming, "Help me."
So Tucker Carlson sat down with a woman who is an activist in Canada, putting a light on what's happening with over 100,000 people having their lives taken due to medical murder. That's been going on for a decade now in Canada due to the Medical Assistance in Dying Act, and that has made its way to America. New York, back in February of this month, passed that act, and that is now available to New Yorkers, and I believe that's available elsewhere also. That means that someone who's terminally ill can be euthanized. They can have their lives taken. And this was discussed, and I did a previous video on that. I'll link that down there in the pinned comment. But I've got a clip now. We'll listen to some more of Tucker from this long episode, which I highly recommend if you want to feel depressed afterward. It's very sad, but very important to be informed on. But exposing the state-sponsored death cult disguised as healthcare and preying on whites and the weak. And in this portion that I'm about to play, he's discussing basically how we need power structures, government in place to control power. Power needs to be controlled. And what he's getting at here, what he seems to understand himself much more now even than a few years ago, is the depravity of man. Just how depraved mankind is. And because mankind is depraved, yes, he needs Christ. And in addition to that, societies need laws. Societies need laws to control behavior, to control the amount of power, the distribution of power that goes to people. And you definitely don't want evil people to have that power. When the righteous rule, the people rejoice, and when the wicked rule, the people groan. So let's listen to what Tucker has to say regarding that and basically the priest class that is created with medical tyranny.
It requires structures that prevent people from doing everything they are able to do. And the more power people have, the greater the range of horrifying possibilities. When you can do something, you're tempted to do it. And some of the things you do will be dark because that's the way people are, have always been, and always will be. And so for generations, in some cases thousands of years, we have had structures in place to keep the powerful from abusing their power. And those structures have disintegrated bit by bit over time. But, and this is, of course, widely discussed, but one of the groups with the most power, who are almost never acknowledged as powerful, who are more powerful than they've ever been in all of human history, are physicians, healthcare workers, doctors and nurses, people with needles. They have the power of life and death more than any member of Delta Force, more than any FBI agent or Capitol Police officer. They can decide whether you live and die. And this is obvious, of course.
Yeah, and they absolutely can. And we saw the COVID tyranny during that time frame. And another thing that he mentioned leading into this part that I'm playing is also the fact that, societies, especially when those are in power, there's always depraved man becomes tempted to just kill off, eliminate those who are a burden to society. And that's related to what he's about to say now.
It's the nature of their job. And so a thoughtful, responsible society sets up structures to make sure that they cannot abuse that power, not because all doctors are bad or all nurses are bad, but because that's an awful lot of power to vest in any individual. And so you need to have rules to prevent those people from abusing them. And the medical profession for literally thousands of years since the ancient Greeks has had those rules. And they're broad, but not maybe as broad as you think. It's called the Hippocratic Oath. And once again, it's been around since ancient Athens.
Yeah. When was the last time you heard a doctor pay any lip service even to the Hippocratic Oath?
And its most famous line, first do no harm, doesn't actually seem to appear in the text. But you may be surprised to learn what does appear in the original text and how it has been changed. And because this tells us so very much about where we are right now, we thought it would be worth reading it. So here's an actual line from the Hippocratic Oath, the real Hippocratic Oath before it was rewritten post-war in the West. And it says this: "Neither will I administer a poison to anybody when asked to do so, nor will I suggest such a course. Similarly, I will not give to a woman a medical instrument to cause abortion, but I will keep pure and holy both my life and my art." Thousands of years ago, wise people understood that the power to kill resided inherently in doctors, and that the temptation to kill, possibly at the request of the patient, would be ever present, but that crossing that line would turn the doctor from a healer into a killer. And in that process, the essence would be lost. You don't go to a killer to be healed. You can't. But those several lines, broad and general as they are, prove too restrictive for the post-Nazi, but not really post-Nazi, medical establishment of the 1940s. And so they changed. The post-war medical establishment changed the language. Here's the new version of the Hippocratic Oath, and we're quoting this directly. "It may also be within my power to take a life. This awesome responsibility must be faced with great humbleness and awareness of my own frailty." Oh, so we go from you cannot kill people. Your job is to heal them. Even if they ask you to kill them, you can't do that because that is crossing a line from which you cannot return. You are no longer a healer, but a killer. And that was in place for thousands of years. And then we get to post-Nazi, but not really post-Nazi. We get to, yeah, you can kill people, but as you kill people, just remember that you're only human. Is it possible to remember that you're only human as you're taking a human life? Probably not. Because by definition, you assume a facsimile of godlike power.
Yeah, exactly. And he goes on to talk about that godlike power and how it puts them in basically a priest class. We need to move on to something else I wanted to play here. State-sponsored murder has been in place for over 10 years. Yeah, and this is a section where he's talking about just how many deaths there have been. And then I will jump over to the discussion about Tim Hortons and what happened outside of Tim Hortons.
Could physician-assisted suicide extend beyond people with ALS and stage 4 pancreatic and esophageal cancer and, all the normal horrible diseases that people...
Because it starts that way, and it started that way in Canada. It started with those with less than 6 months to live, and is promoted as, this dignified type thing to take the life of someone, Imago Dei, made in the image of God. And then now it's spread out to someone that, if they have seasonal depression, you can maybe talk them into taking their life. Or in the cases where it's done involuntarily, it's done against their will. And that is definitely happening, and it is wicked.
Get and die from. Is it possible that government officials and physicians and nurses would be so unethical or so morally ungrounded that they would allow pretty healthy people or depressed people or people who could get better with treatment that is just too expensive for the state to provide, those people to be killed? Well, we don't have to guess about this because euthanasia, state-sponsored killing of its own citizens, has been in place for more than 10 years in Canada. So in Canada, a place that we ignore as a matter of policy, in Canada, the so-called MAID program, Medical Assistance in Dying, has been the law per the Supreme Court of Canada since 2016, almost 11 years. And in that time, over 100,000 Canadians have been killed by their government. And what's interesting about this is that in a country with fewer than 40 million people, that's now a leading cause of death. That is one of the leading ways that Canadians die. They are killed by their government. That's the first thing you notice. That's an incredibly large number. We haven't bothered to get the calculator out to do the proportion in the United States, but 100,000 in a country of fewer than 40 million, what would that mean in a nation of 350 million? That's a lot of people in 10 years. That's a huge number of people. How could 100,000 Canadians be killed by the Canadian government over the last 10 years? And you may not even know that happened. Most Canadians are not aware that that happened. In fact, that number, 100,000, was not advertised by the government. They did a lot to keep that secret. That government number was unearthed by a private researcher, Kelsey Sharon, who we're going to speak to in a minute, who's one of the only people in the entire nation of Canada who's paying attention to this. But make no mistake, this is what matters. If you're trying to assess what's important in the news today, could it be some pop star's wedding at Madison Square Garden, or the fact that 100,000 people were just killed by their government right north of us? Probably go with the latter, because when you really get down to it, what matters is who lives and who dies. Those are final decisions.
Well, I'm going to jump ahead to the Tim Hortons case, but first, I ran the numbers, and it looks like it's under 0.25% of the population, 40 million in Canada, 100,000 lives taken, over 100,000. He went on to explain that it was over 95% white, over 95% white lives. So obvious, especially with like a 50-50 ratio or something like that in Canada of, not, if it's over 50%, it's not much over 50% white population in Canada. So there's obvious demographic purpose going on there of removal of white people. But if you were to take that same percentage and multiply it by the roughly 349 million people in America, that comes out to be nearly 900,000 lives. That's 872,500. So close to 1 million lives. Proportionally, if the same amount of people were killed through a program like that over that course of time in America. And that's pretty wicked. Well, let me find my spot. We'll look at the Tim Hortons case.
Do people in Canada say anything about this?
So there are some
100,000 people in a country as small as Canada is a lot.
It's an entire town. I was talking to Tamara Leach. She was the head of the trucker protest, and she's become a friend and really started to help support me because my things are collapsing around me. People are really trying to just get the name out. And she goes, "That's the size of my town."
Yeah, it's more Canadians than died in World War II.
That's insanity.
So, but it does seem, I gave one speech in Canada in the last several years and mentioned it, and people just sort of stared blankly at me.
They didn't know. They still don't know.
So this is not something people talk about?
No, it's not, because like you said at the very beginning, how dare you judge? How dare you? My biggest thing in my DMs is either race comments about my husband, or it is how dare you talk about somebody's end of life. It is their choice. It is their body. I said, not when you use my taxpayer dollars. It's not.
Well, it's also not their choice.
It's also not their choice.
You don't get to kill.
No, and you're coercing people. And also, I'm pretty sure doctors did not go to school to murder people, unless there's a few of them who are definitely psychopaths who enjoy it based on the amount of people they've murdered. I was speaking with your team and we were having a discussion about the Tim Hortons case. And the Tim Hortons case was Dr. James McLean out of Westmont Family Practice in London, Ontario. Him and his wife work there. And he qualified a guy in front of a Tim Hortons.
What does that mean?
He did an assessment in front of Tim Hortons and decided
Tim Hortons is a fast food restaurant in Canada.
Tim Hortons is a crumbling donut shop that has decided to replace all of its employees with cheap labor, and now they're getting a backlash. But it used to be like the heart of our, it used to be like your Dunkin' Donuts or like your Starbucks. Like Tim Hortons was like, every farmer would go there at 5 a.m. and get donuts and coffee. I know, I worked there for 4 years as a teenager. Like Tim Hortons was like Canada. Like we had a Tim Hortons in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little sea
Tim
can.
Hortons and Canadian Tire.
Yeah, exactly.
Your two big retailers.
That's right.
So, or McDonald's and Walmart.
Exactly. So,
but Tim Hortons is not like a medical facility, right?
No, because you don't have to be qualified in a medical facility. Like I stated before, Ellen, we qualified somebody on a Zoom call.
So he meets this guy outside Tim Hortons, and what happens?
He qualified him.
Meaning?
He drove him to die.
And they killed him.
I'm not sure if it was him that killed him. I think it was. But regardless if it was him or not, The fact that he qualified him in front of a Tim Hortons, and then that same doctor is also still practicing euthanasia, even though he killed somebody twice because he didn't bring all of the drugs. And then the guy woke up halfway through the procedure screaming, "Help me." And then he came back after he declared him dead and did it again in front of the family. And that's a very well documented case. It's very public. People can read it. I didn't just write about it. Yes, I did write about it on Substack, but others have documented it as well.
But he didn't help him. He killed him.
Yeah, he killed him. Because the perception is that when you are put under with the propofol, you're flooded with so much propofol that you just go to sleep. I don't know if you've ever had surgery. You know, when you're getting put under and you kind of feel that like and then you're gone, that kind of feeling. Well, that's the drug's flooding. Now, there's a ton of cases of people having surgery where they say, I couldn't move, but I remember everything. Well, that's because that happens. Maybe not to everyone, but it happens.
And it's propofol would be the anesthesia.
Correct.
So they're getting into medical discussion on it, and even how some have done it without the medication they're supposed to. Regardless, just pure wickedness. Absolutely satanic. Absolutely satanic. Pure and utter wickedness. So pray that we can keep that from spreading and that word gets out and that these kind of things can get shut down as many places as possible. Hit that like button on the way out. You're not liking what you've heard. You're just liking helping us push this video out to more people. Subscribe if you want to follow Adam's analysis, where I give analysis of content like this, current cultural issues from a theological, biblical, logical perspective. Take a look down in the pinned comment for the channel trailer and related videos. God bless you.